Okay, this will be the fourth and final video in the biopsychology unit. So the last one of the neurotransmitters that I wanted to focus on is endorphins. Endorphins are released in times of stress and pain, and if there's a lot of them in your system, you can actually feel feelings of euphoria. If you've ever been in a situation where you've gotten a significant injury and haven't felt it right away, part of that is an endorphin response. Your endorphins are the natural painkillers in your body. They actually bind to the same receptors in your brain that opioids bind to. Obviously, the endorphins that your body naturally produces are not as strong as taking morphine, but they act in the same ways in your brain. Their role is natural pain relief. So they function to ease stress and pain, mental pain and physical pain. They're released during periods of pain. Eating spicy food is actually enough pain to release endorphins. That's why for a lot of people, having spicy food is like a comfort food type of thing. Because that tingle, that little painful sensation that you get in your mouth, that's enough of a pain to get some endorphins going. This is also the reason why some people will, unfortunately, begin and continue self-harm behaviors, such as cutting. Because even if it's a self-inflicted pain, that's still a high enough level of pain that you can release endorphins through it. And there's a wide variation in the endorphin level produced by different people for the same activity. So for some people, that act of self-harm releases enough endorphins that they report that they can actually feel like a surge from it or a high from it. And that's one of the things that unfortunately perpetuates that practice because, as we've already said, endorphins don't just ease physical pain, they also ease mental pain. Having a surge of endorphins in your body makes you feel good. If you've ever seen the movie Legally Blonde, that famous line from that movie when she's trying to prove why the woman didn't kill her husband, and she's talking about, well, she exercises 5 days a week, and people who exercise are happy, and happy people don't kill their husbands, right? There is a level of truth to that because when you exercise, and when you put yourself in that small amount of physical pain from exercising, you are releasing endorphins. And endorphins will ease mental pain and stress and negative feelings while they're easing physical pain. And so you will get that sense of an exercise high or that post-exercise happiness and euphoria. So if you've ever noticed that you're less stressed right when you're done exercising, that's from those endorphins. If you've ever noticed you're able to handle stress better when you're in a healthy exercise routine, that's from those endorphins that your body is getting every day. Another interesting fact about that is it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be exercise, it doesn't have to be pain. We found a couple exceptions to pain in terms of other things that release endorphins. Laughter releases endorphins, and so does eating chocolate. Like there's a biological explanation for why chocolate is a lot of people's comfort food, because it releases endorphins when you eat it. So as we've already said, it acts on the opioid receptors in the brain. And then if you have higher endorphin levels in your body, you have fewer negative effects of stress. And there are variations in endorphin levels. So like if for me, for example, I love to go, I enjoy boxing. I have a boxing gym here in town I'm a member of. I get a pretty big endorphin high from that. That is a type of exercise that for me, that gives me that post-exercise high in a way that running and swimming just don't quite do the same thing. There is a wide variety of endorphin levels produced by different people for the same activity. I have friends who are runners, and they're always talking about their runner's high. I've never experienced that while running. Like my endorphins don't work the same way as theirs do when it comes to that. So there is a wide variety. So the last thing, that's it for endorphins. But again, one important thing to remember is they're binding to those same opioid receptors in your brain that what pain control management would do. And having those receptors activated That's why some of those pain pills can also give those feelings of a euphoria or high, because whenever those opioid receptors are activated, that's just one of the psychological mechanisms that kicks in. And I wanted to use that as a segue because one of the most practical areas of application to all of this is if you're interested in addiction science. And if you're interested in addictions in any way, I have a couple different resources that I want to recommend. The first is this book. Let me maximize myself here so I can show you. Okay. One of my mentors in college recommended this book to me, and it's very well used. It's fascinating. It's a handbook, so it's like a reference side book. But it's called Illegal Drugs, Complete Guide to Their History, Chemistry, and Abuse. It is by Paul Gallagher. As you can see, my copy is very well loved. But what it does on each of the drugs, it talks about how addictive they are. It talks about some of the mechanisms in the brain that are making it addictive. But it also talks about the mechanisms in the brain that explain why you feel the way that you feel on it. And it does it in a way that's really easy to understand. So if you have any interest in addiction counseling or working with recovering addicts or the criminal justice field where you might interact with individuals who have addiction or juvenile delinquency or anything like that, I would highly recommend finding a copy of this book. You can find it used for super cheap. But it's an excellent reference guide, and it breaks down the biology in a way that's really, really easy to understand. The other resource I would recommend, it's on Netflix right now, and it's called The Business of Drugs, and it's a miniseries. And each episode focuses on a different drug. And in the intro, it explains very clearly, like the biological mechanism of action for why it makes you feel the way you feel. Like, here's why these ones make you feel really happy. Here's why these ones make you feel really energetic. Here's why these ones help you feel relaxed and de-stressed. It goes through those brain mechanisms. It talks about the neurotransmitters. It talks about the brain structures. And again, it does it in a way that's really easy to understand. They do really great visuals on the screen. And then it's also really fascinating when they get into some of the different ethical concerns. You know, when you're talking about the field workers who are forced to harvest some of these drugs and the shippers and all that. It's an excellent series in general. I would highly recommend it. I find addiction stuff interesting if you haven't figured that out yet. But their explanations of why some drugs work the way that they do is really interesting. So just if you wanted to watch like the first few minutes of each episode while they discuss that and then switch to the next one, it's a really great watch. So that concludes my various and assorted rambles on the different areas of biopsychology that I find interesting. For those of you who are not finding this area interesting, believe me, I understand. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just, this is an area that some people find great and some people really don't. Please email me if you have any questions about anything. Otherwise, have a great week and good luck getting everything worked through on this unit. So email if you have any questions.